Hey guys, it's me, Ethan. It's been a while since you've seen me. Yeah, a lot's changed since then. First off, well, I have a daughter on the way. Yep, she'll be here in January of 2021, and it is October of 2020 at the time of recording this, and me and Mia, we're pretty excited. You see, we went home to America after the whole South Korea thing, and we spent a lot of time together, and we spent some time working together, and, well, it was in late 2019 that we decided that, yeah, we would like to have kids. So we started trying, but not trying that hard. And then, in February of 2020, Mia officially became pregnant. But in March of 2020, we had to go into quarantine. But we still got to go to the office every now and again, but for the most part, we were in quarantine. But I thank God that Ethiopia wasn't quarantined nearly as much as the other countries. Alright, but anyway, everything was doing good, but something I just recently learned of something terrible that's happened to Jake and Dylan, Conway's kids. You see, in early 2015, they were adopted by their grandparents, and, well, I just got the terrible news that their grandparents and adopted sister died in a horrible fire. And that is just awful. And to make matters worse, they're missing. Jake and Dylan are missing. And they live really far away. You see, about over a year ago, they moved away from North Carolina, and they moved to Massachusetts near Cape Cod. And they live there now, and they bought them an old white colonial mansion, the grandparents did. And about 2 years before, they had adopted another little girl. You see, she wasn't supposed to get adopted, but it was started off as a foster care thing, turned into adoption because, you see, about 2 to 3 years before, Dylan became friends with this little girl named May. And she was the weird kid at school. Nobody liked her. But he kind of took her under her wing. And he found out that she was in foster care. And, well, he just felt so sorry for her that he just about begged the grandparents to be the new foster parents, because she was just not happy in her new foster home. So they took her in, and they were gonna give May to another member of their church, but Dylan got really, really attached to May, so they kept her. And then about a year ago, they moved up to Massachusetts into a tourist town called Little Hope. It's in the woods, but it's about 15 minutes away from the beach in the small state of Massachusetts. In fact, as a native North Carolinian, I don't even know why Massachusetts is called a state. But, okay. And now, I have to leave my pregnant wife behind, and I gotta go to North Carolina. I'm gonna sail there because I can't fly, and then I'm gonna rent a car, and I'm gonna drive all the way up a couple days journey to Massachusetts to go pick him up. And that's what I did. It took me about 3 days to drive all the way up to Massachusetts. And eventually what I did is, you see, there's this diner on the side of the road, and that kind of leads to Little Hope. It's one of the first things you see when you get to Little Hope. And I met the sheriff there, and I asked the sheriff, well, what happened? And he said, well, when the house fire first happened, they stayed at the police station for a little while, and then they just ran away when we recovered the grandparents' bodies. And we don't know where. But I have a hunch that they are in that old resort town. But there aren't that many people in the resort town because, well, COVID. COVID shut everything down. It's like a ghost town in there. And I looked over down the road where the resort town was, and you know what? I believed them. It was a ghost town. I mean, I should know. I've been through almost every single supernatural thing there is. But I knew I had to find these kids. They were born in 2005, so they were about 15 at the time, so surely it wasn't hard to find two 15-year-olds in an old abandoned resort town. So, I started walking, and I was walking down the street, and it was real foggy. It had just been raining, and it was a little bit humid, but I was born in North Carolina. Like, Massachusetts humidity was nothing compared to southern humidity, so it wasn't too bad for me. And then the first thing I noticed as I was walking into the town was a park. It was a park / playground. It was for little kids, but hey, maybe a teenager could be there because, well, there was a jungle gym, and there was also a swing set there. And hey, when I was 15, 16, I used to hang around the swing set that was near my house back in Cape Fear. So I went in, I checked it out, but something about the sandbox looked familiar. You see, there was those buckets that you make sandcastles out of, and something else there too. There was this tire hanging below a tree, and it was like a tire swing, but the tire looked familiar, and that's when I noticed there were stars, yellow stars painted on it, and it looked exactly like the tire swing that me and my dad made when I was 6. And we used to call it my little rocket ship. And come to think of it, the tire also had flames drawn on it. And me and my dad, we also put flames on our tire swing. And then I noticed that the jungle gym was literally the same color and the same layout as the jungle gym, as the park that I used to hang out at when I was a kid. And the sandbox had all the same things that my sandbox back at Cape Fear had. And it was so weird. Like, it wasn't just a coincidence. This was crazy. It had everything that my playground had almost to a T. And then I remembered my dad. I'd started missing him again that day. You see, my dad, he died in the summer of 2018. He died of cancer. Yeah, he was the sheriff of Cape Fear, and he retired. And, well, I really miss him. I miss him a lot. And something in this playground was enticing me to stay, but no. If I stay in this playground any longer, I don't know what'll happen. So I had to get out. And so I did. I walked away through that fog. And then I walked into another building that was on the side of the road, and there was what appeared to be like a mail truck. And so I walked in there, and it was a bar. I could see a bartender at the table, and there was also an old black mailman there, and he was drinking some of what appeared to be scotch or whiskey. I didn't really care. And I asked, "Hey, excuse me, guys, have you seen 2 teenage boys walk through here? They're both white. One has really dark brown hair, and the other one has light brown hair. And one's muscular, and the other one's skinny. Have you seen them around?" And the bartender said, "I don't know. Why would a 15-year-old walk into a bar?" And the mailman said, "Well, son, I know almost everybody here. And I know that they're the newcomers. Yeah, I think I have seen them. I've seen them walk through here." And I said, "Really? Where'd they go?" And he said, "Oh, they went down to that cul-de-sac. But, I don't know. I don't know. I think you should get out of here, or you'll become stuck in here, just like we is. And they're gonna be too." What? No, I have to get those kids, because me and my wife, we are the only family they have left. So I've got to find them. Where'd they go? And the old black mailman said, "Well, son, I think I told you they went down to that cul-de-sac over there. And my hunch is that they're in one of the cabins out back." And I said, "Okay, thank you." And he said, "Wait, before you go, here, drink some whiskey, son. It'll set your mind at ease." And boy, I was I wanted that whiskey so bad. Because, see, my dad, he was a lifelong drinker, and yeah, I like to drink a little bit too. But that whiskey, I stared at it, and it was like there was nothing else there in the world. No, I couldn't. I had to find these kids. And I said, sorry, but I gotta go. And so I walked through that foggy street, and then I came across the cul-de-sac. And in the middle, there was a big fountain. And on the side, there was a museum/visitor center. And in the center, there was a church. And on the other side, there was a general store and restaurant. You know, I remember that Jake, he was a big, history guy. And I thought, okay, well, maybe they're in the museum. So I went in. And then it was real dark, so I turned the lights on. I was surprised the lights still worked. But I started walking into the museum gallery, and I immediately got a bad feeling about this place. I stepped in and I looked at what appeared to be a Native American exhibit. You see, there was a picture of what the Native American village would have looked like, and it was built right on where we're standing, or where I was standing right now. And there was some broken pottery bits and some arrowheads and then what looked like a tomahawk. And then I noticed a strange mask. It was similar to what the Salaji were wearing. It was weird. And then I saw the drum, and as soon as I looked away from it, I heard the drum sound, it started just going. I heard this drum sound, and it sounded like a metronome or a heartbeat. And so I kept walking throughout the gallery, and I noticed that there was some exhibits showing how the settlers came, and there was some old suits, and there was also some old muskets, and it showed the settlers driving the Native Americans away. And I heard different sounds, like a pop or a very faint scream. And then right in the center of the museum, I saw a big wooden pole sticking out of the ground, but it had logs around it. And then, as if right on cue, I heard a whoosh sound, and then the stake erupted into fire, and then the drum started getting faster and faster. And then I immediately ran out of there. And then I looked back, and I expected to see the whole museum in flames, but it wasn't. It was like there had never been a fire at all. Yeah, that was weird. So I walked to the other side of the cul-de-sac, and I noticed that there was a general store. And I thought, wait a minute, the general store probably has all the food. And if they're staying in the cabins, well, they gotta be coming out for food or anything they might need. And the general store has almost everything that you need, so maybe they're in there. And so I walked in there, and And it was a real dark general store, you see. And the lights were just flickering off and on, and there were just some overturned shopping carts. And the aisles with all these cans and boxes on the floor. And the refrigerators in the back had a real creepy glow. And then I heard a clink sound. I didn't know who that was or what it was. And so I started walking to where I heard the sound, and then I heard what appeared to be a door opening. And so I ran all the way to the back where the extra supplies and cleaning supplies would be, and then I noticed there was a light on behind the door. So I threw it open, and then I was thrown to the ground. And then I noticed that there was a man standing above me, but he was a real young man, almost as if he was a boy. And I looked right at him, and I remembered he was white, and he had dark brown hair and dark brown eyes. And he had kind of a stocky, muscular build. And I remembered, I cried out, "Jacob, Jake!" And he stopped. And he said, "How do you know my name? Who are you?" And he was still on top of me. And I said, "It's Ethan. Remember, I'm married to your Aunt Mia." "Mia?" And he shot up and said, "Wait, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to save you. I'm here to get you out." And then after that, Jake hugged me and I said, "Okay, now where's Dylan?" "He's back at the cabin. Let me show you." And then Jake was leading me down the road away from the store to where the cabins were. But in order to get to the cabins, we had to cross one of those covered bridges. You know, like the covered bridge you might know, like from Sleepy Hollow. Yeah. So we crossed that, but I heard something below the bridge, like a splashing sound. That was weird. And then I thought that was weird. And so we kept walking, and we walked past, like we were off the covered bridge, and then we heard a big splash, and it was big enough for us both to notice. And we looked back, and we saw a strange figure get out, but this figure had long, what appeared to be hair, and it looked like a black skeleton, and it started just creepily janking its way towards us, like walking in a creepy, janking fashion, like it threw part of its body forward and then threw the other part forward. It did not walk like a human. And it said, "Jake, my big brother." And Jake, his eyes were wide with terror, and he said, Ethan, we gotta go. Go, go, go. And so he took me by the hand and ran. And we ran all the way down to this kind of small wooden cabin. And he threw open the door and closed it. And then closed the shutters. And Dylan came forward, and he had lighter and more well-kept hair. And he always wore a thin t-shirt and jeans that exposed his ankles, and he wore like what appeared to be hey dudes. And he said, "What, Jake, who is this?" And he said, "It's Ethan, remember?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I remember Ethan." And Dylan said, "Wait, what's he doing here?" And Jake said, "He's here to get us out, but he just saw May." And then Dylan's eyes went wide with terror. And he said, "Oh, we gotta get out of here."